Sophie Reynolds wasn't the kind of girl to back down from a mystery. In fact, she thrived on solving them. At 16, she had already earned herself a bit of a reputation at school as the girl who could find out just about anything. Whether it was locating someone's missing textbook or figuring out who had a secret crush on whom, Sophie's investigative skills were well known. But this mystery, this was something entirely different. It had all started the day her family moved into the old Victorian house on the corner of Maple Street. The house was massive, far larger than their previous home, with creaky floorboards and narrow hallways that seemed to twist and turn in unexpected ways. It had an air of mystery to it, and Sophie couldn't help but feel excited about what secrets might be hidden inside its walls. "This place is kind of creepy, don't you think?" her younger brother, Ben, asked as they hauled boxes up the winding staircase. Sophie shrugged. "Creepy? More like cool. You know how old houses like this always have secret compartments or hidden doors. I bet we'll find something." Ben rolled his eyes. "You and your detective stuff. This house is probably just old, not haunted." Sophie grinned at him. "We'll see." The first few days passed uneventfully. Sophie's parents were busy unpacking and setting up the house, while she and Ben explored their new surroundings. They found old, dusty books in the attic, strange creaks and groans in the floorboards, and a hidden crawl space under the stairs that led to a tiny room filled with cobwebs. But nothing out of the ordinary, at least, not until Sophie stumbled upon the letter. It was a rainy afternoon, and Sophie had been poking around in one of the upstairs bedrooms. The room had clearly been a guest bedroom at some point, with faded wallpaper and an old-fashioned vanity still in the corner. Sophie ran her fingers along the edge of the vanity, wiping away dust, when something caught her eye. There, stuck in the crack between the vanity's mirror and the wooden frame, was a yellowed envelope. It looked old, really old. Sophie carefully pried it loose and turned it over in her hands. There was no address, no name, no postage. Just a simple, faded envelope sealed shut with wax. Her heart raced with excitement as she slowly peeled open the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper, also yellowed with age. The handwriting was elegant, flowing, and written in black ink that had faded slightly over the years. But what really caught Sophie's attention was what the letter said. "My dearest, it pains me to write these words, but I must. There are things I cannot say aloud, secrets that must remain hidden. You must know that my heart belongs to you and you alone, but our love is one that cannot be. The circumstances of our lives have made that painfully clear. Still, I could not leave without telling you the truth. There is a hidden place where I have left something for you, some message, a part of my heart that I hope will bring you some solace in my absence. You will find it where the sun meets the earth, where shadows linger in the light. I pray you will understand. I have loved you more deeply than words could ever express, and though we may never be together in this world, know that my soul will always be with you. Yours, W." Sophie sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the letter in disbelief. This wasn't just some random piece of old paper, this was a love letter. And whoever had written it had left a clue to something hidden, something secret. Sophie's mind raced as she thought about the possibilities. "Where the sun meets the earth, where shadows linger in the light," she muttered under her breath. What could that mean? She glanced around the room, wondering if the clue was somewhere nearby. But the bedroom looked ordinary enough. There was nothing that stood out, nothing that seemed to match the poetic description in the letter. Still, Sophie couldn't shake the feeling that she was onto something big. She folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her pocket, determined to figure out what it all meant. That evening, over dinner, Sophie could barely contain her excitement. She kept thinking about the letter, about the mysterious W, and the hidden message. But she didn't say anything to her family, not yet. She wanted to solve the mystery on her own first. After dinner, Sophie retreated to her room and pulled out the letter again. She read it over and over, trying to decipher the cryptic clue. Where the sun meets the earth, that could mean so many things. A sunset? A horizon? And what about where shadows linger in the light? That part didn't make any sense at all. Frustrated but determined, Sophie decided she needed help. Not from her family, they wouldn't take her seriously, but from someone who understood how her mind worked. That someone was Lucas. Lucas Hart had been Sophie's best friend since they were kids. He was smart, quiet, and just as curious as she was, though he preferred puzzles and riddles to the more dramatic mysteries Sophie often found herself caught up in. Still, he was the first person she called when she needed a second opinion. "Lucas, I found something," Sophie said breathlessly when he answered the phone. "Found what?" Lucas asked, sounding mildly amused. He was used to Sophie's excitement when she stumbled upon one of her mysteries. "A letter," she explained. "An old one. And it has a clue to something hidden. I need your help figuring it out." Lucas hesitated for a moment. "Okay, I'm intrigued. Where are you?" "At home," Sophie said. "Come over. I'll show you." An hour later, Lucas was sitting on the floor of Sophie's bedroom, the letter spread out between them. He read it carefully, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This is really interesting," Lucas said slowly, his finger tracing the lines of the letter. "It's definitely a love letter, but the clue is so vague. Where the sun meets the earth. That could be anywhere." "I know," Sophie agreed, her frustration clear. "But there has to be something. Whoever wrote this left something behind. We just have to figure out where." Lucas nodded, thinking. "Okay, let's break it down. Where the sun meets the earth, that sounds like a place where sunlight hits the ground, right? Maybe a specific spot in the house where sunlight comes through a window?" Sophie's eyes lit up. "That's a good point. We could check all the windows tomorrow, see if any of them cast shadows in a weird way." "And the part about shadows lingering in the light," Lucas continued, tapping the letter. "That might be the key. We're looking for a place where shadows and light mix." Sophie nodded eagerly. "Right. So, we'll check the house tomorrow. Every window, every room." Lucas smiled, amused by her enthusiasm. "You're really into this, aren't you?" Sophie grinned. "Are you kidding? This is the kind of mystery I've been waiting for. A hidden love letter, a secret message, it's perfect." Lucas chuckled, shaking his head. Well, let's hope we actually find something. The next morning, Sophie and Lucas began their search. They started with the upstairs bedrooms, checking each window to see how the sunlight fell across the floors. They looked for anything unusual, shadows, strange angles, anything that might give them a clue. But after hours of searching, they came up empty. Sophie slumped down on the stairs, her arms crossed over her chest in frustration. Maybe we're looking in the wrong place. Lucas sat down next to her, frowning. It's possible. But the letter has to mean something. There's no way this was just a random clue. Sophie chewed her lip, thinking. Maybe we need to think bigger. The clue might not be inside the house at all. Lucas raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Well, Sophie said slowly, if you think about it, where the sun meets the earth sounds more like an outdoor thing, right? Like a horizon, or a spot outside where the sun hits at a certain time of day. Lucas's eyes widened in realization. You're right. We've been looking inside the house, but the clue could be pointing to something outside. Sophie jumped to her feet, her energy renewed. Come on. Let's check the yard. They spent the next hour combing the yard for any sign of what the letter described. They checked every corner, every patch of grass, looking for something, anything, that could be the hidden message. But nothing stood out. Frustration was beginning to creep in again when Sophie spotted something unusual near the back of the property. Lucas, look at this, she called, crouching down next to an old stone sundial that stood at the edge of the yard. Lucas joined her, peering at the sundial. What about it? Sophie pointed to the base of the sundial, where a small, circular panel seemed to be out of place. It was slightly loose, as if it could be removed. Help me get this off, Sophie said, her voice filled with excitement. Together, they pried the panel loose, revealing a small compartment hidden underneath. Inside was a small, weathered box, its hinges rusted with age. Sophie's heart raced as she carefully lifted the box out of the compartment. She glanced at Lucas, who nodded in encouragement, and then slowly opened the lid. Inside was a folded piece of paper, along with a small, tarnished locket. Sophie unfolded the paper, her hands shaking with anticipation. It was another letter, but this one was shorter, much shorter. My love, if you have found this, then you know the truth. I have never stopped loving you, and though we cannot be together, I hope this locket will remind you of the love we shared. Keep it close, always. Yours, W. Sophie stared at the letter, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe it, they had actually found the hidden message. This is incredible, Lucas whispered, his eyes wide as he looked at the locket. Whoever wrote this must have loved the person so much. Sophie nodded, her mind racing with questions. Who were they? Why couldn't they be together? What had happened to them? But as she held the locket in her hand, she realized something important. This mystery, as fascinating as it was, wasn't just about finding hidden messages or solving puzzles. It was about love, love that had endured even when the world had tried to tear it apart. And in that moment, Sophie felt a connection to the past, to the two people who had shared this love, and she knew she would never forget the story of the hidden message. The end.